Coming up today, North Korea is about to face some of the toughest UN sanctions ever for its recent nuclear missile provocations. The Security Council has just finished deliberating a resolution submitted by the United States. China's foreign minister pledges to work toward the denuclearization of North Korea, but says Beijing is not happy with Seoul and Washington's plans to deploy a highly sophisticated missile defense system to the Korean peninsula. Plus, South Korea's opposition parties continue to block a long-stalled anti-terror bill. Their marathon filibuster is now into its fourth day. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello to our viewers around the world. It's 6 a.m. on Friday, February 26th here in Seoul. Thank you ever so much for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story this morning, and we have some breaking news. The United States has submitted its draft North Korea sanctions resolution to the UN Security Council. This resolution is, of course, in response to North Korea's recent nuclear test and ballistic missile launch. Details are still filtering through, but what we know is that the resolution will require the inspection of all cargo to and from North Korea. The US ambassador to the UN, that woman there, Samantha Power, says these are the toughest sanctions ever against the North in 2 decades, 20 years. Now, the UN sanctions resolution, there will be, in the case of implication in illegal banking transactions as well, North Korean diplomats will be expelled from whichever country they are in. On top of this, there will be, as we said, a mandatory inspection of North Korean freight import and export, no matter where it is going or where it has come from. Also, toughened weapons sanctions like banning North Korean weapons imports and exports as well. This news has just come in within the last 20 or 30 minutes or so. So details, like we say, are still coming in. We will give you the latest and a comprehensive review of everything agreed upon in New York in our later newscast. Now, China has reportedly banned North Korean vessels from entering Chinese ports. A Chinese businessman in Dandong said Thursday that port authorities rejected his request for a North Korean ship to enter the city's port. The Dandong port has been the hub for bilateral trade between the two countries, annually shipping an estimated $1.3 billion worth of North Korean goods to China. So this could well be linked to those recently announced UN sanctions. The report came a matter of hours after the US and China reached an agreement on a new set of UN Security Council sanctions against North Korea for its latest missile and nuclear provocations. Now, China's foreign minister has called on South Korea and the United States to reconsider plans to deploy a high-tech missile defense system to the Korean peninsula, saying his country's national security interests could be jeopardized or threatened by the system. Speaking at the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington on Thursday, Wang said the X-band radar associated with the THAAD system reaches beyond the Korean peninsula and into the interior of China. He noted how Seoul and Washington have a right to ensure their own security, but said China's legitimate security concerns must be taken into account. Now, his remarks come a matter of days after US Secretary of State John Kerry said the THAAD system wouldn't be necessary if North Korea were denuclearized. On that topic, Wang said denuclearization negotiations should go hand in hand with talks on replacing the 1953 Korean Armistice Agreement with an actual peace treaty. He asserted that without a peace treaty, denuclearization could not be achieved in any sustainable way. The top intelligence official in the United States says North Korea detonated a low-yield nuclear bomb last month, not a much more powerful hydrogen bomb, as it claims. Speaking at the House Intelligence Committee on Thursday, Director of National Intelligence James Clapper quashed Pyongyang's widely discredited claims that it successfully tested an H-bomb on January 6th. He explained that the low yield of the test is not consistent with a successful test of the more powerful device. Now, Clapper also expressed concern North Korea was expanding production at its plutonium-grade nuclear reactor in Yongbyon. He warned the North may extract plutonium within the coming weeks or months. The official noted that the North was following through on its 2013 announcement to refurbish and restart its nuclear facilities. Now, President Park Geun-hye has entered her 4th year in office, and to mark the occasion, we have been bringing you a series of special reports. And in the last report of our 5-part series, we're going to take a look at how President Park's handling of inter-Korean affairs has changed with the continued provocations from North Korea. Our Unification Ministry correspondent Connie Kim has this report.
President Park Geun-hye offered a vision for the reunification of the two Koreas, calling it a bonanza for the peninsula. Later in Dresden, a symbolic city for German reunification, President Park laid out her plan for Korean reunification in 3 major areas: humanitarianism, integration, and prosperity. And a landmark inter-Korean agreement reached after the conflict seemed to push relations between the two Koreas in a new direction, with a new round of family reunions seeming to offer hope for the future. However, with North Korea's nuclear test and long-range missile launch, President Park has made clear that inter-Korean relations will only improve when Pyongyang gives up its nuclear weapons program. This marks a sizable shift to a more hardline stance against the North. That shift was evident in the president's decision to shut down the inter-Korean Kaesong industrial complex, the most drastic step to contain the North the president has taken so far. And she's warned there are more sanctions to come.
국민 여러분, 이제 기존의 방식과 선의로는 북한 정권의 핵 개발 의지를 결코 꺾을 수 없고 북한의 핵 능력만 고도화시켜서 결국 한반도의 파국을 초래하게 될 것이라는 점이 명백해졌습니다.
Most North Korea watchers say Pyongyang's repeated provocations have tested the limits of President Park's trust-building initiative.
There is a limit to what you can do to push for security on the Korean peninsula and build inter-Korean cooperation while North Korea continues its nuclear and missile development. This imbalance has been raised as a fundamental problem with her trust politic.
But just as out of every crisis opportunity arises, experts say this is the time to review policies that could improve relations.
Talks with North Korea after an escalation in tensions will be inevitable for as long as the regime exists. The Park administration should not rule out the possibility of holding dialogue with the reclusive regime when reviewing its North Korea policies.
Whether President Park is able to strike a balance between security and cooperation, between punishment and dialogue in her North Korea policy, is a question that'll be answered when her term comes to an end in 2018. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Now shifting our focus now to the National Assembly, and Korea's opposition parties are continuing their marathon filibuster session. Lawmakers have been taking turns speaking to Parliament day and night since late Tuesday. It's now Friday morning here in Korea. They hope the ultra-extended speeches lasting several hours at a time will stall the adoption of a controversial anti-terrorism bill. They say the legislation would give the nation's spy agency undue power to wiretap ordinary citizens. Ji Myung-gil with the details.
The ruling Saenuri Party has characterized the opposition bloc's filibuster as an act of terrorism against public safety. Its floor leader said Thursday that at a time of heightened tensions on the peninsula, the mechanisms in the bill are indispensable to countering threats from North Korea.
On top of its armed provocations, North Korea is threatening us with terror and cyber attacks and even plotting to target the South Korean presidential office. The opposition bloc should immediately stop trying to hold the bill up.
The main opposition Minju Party of Korea initiated the filibuster because of concerns about a potential abuse of power by the National Intelligence Service, which has been embroiled in numerous political scandals over the years, including allegations of election meddling.
South Korean citizens now know that the security bill is a bill to empower the National Intelligence Service. This bill will allow the agency to engage in surveillance of people's private communications and give it unlimited power to track down financial transactions.
The party launched the filibuster after National Assembly Speaker Chung Yu-ah decided to use his authority to bring the bill up for a vote. Despite its objections to the bill, the Minju Party said it would reconsider if the ruling party agreed to revise the bill to limit the spy agency's power. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Now, as well as blocking passage of the anti-terror bill, the main opposition party's filibuster has gone some way to refocusing the public's attention on state affairs. Now, Shin Se-min hit the streets to hear what people had to say.
The main opposition party's filibuster of a contentious counterterrorism bill at the National Assembly has captured the public's attention. The word filibuster, the counterterrorism bill, and the names of opposition party lawmakers topped the search list on Naver, Korea's biggest web portal. And the hashtags filibuster and counterterrorism bill are trending on social media. Even the National Assembly TV, which is live streaming the filibuster, has racked up its highest ratings since the station's founding in 2004. The Minju Party of Korea initiated the filibuster to block the counterterrorism bill, which it says will only empower the spy agency to conduct surveillance on civilians, while the ruling party claims the measures in the bill will better protect the country from terror threats. This sharp division between the parties is also reflected in public opinion.
Instead of delaying state affairs, I believe the ongoing filibuster should come to an end.
I hope the nation becomes more secure with the counterterrorism law by filtering out any potential threats.
But there are some who say the bill has raised privacy concerns.
I'm worried that the government will be able to monitor private conversations without a warrant when terrorism is suspected.
I don't understand why the issue was brought up after North Korea's fourth nuclear test. Our country has been able to maintain the security we have until now.
Some civic groups have even launched a demonstration outside the parliament in solidarity with the lawmakers who are filibustering inside. Although it's still unclear how or when the standoff within the parliament will be resolved, the flurry of activity there has certainly refocused the public attention on state affairs. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Now, one of the world's biggest tech shows, the Mobile World Congress, has come to an end. For more on what gained traction during the four-day event and what failed to steal the limelight, our Kim Ji-yeon reports from Barcelona.
Virtual reality devices, 5G networks, and mobile security solutions took center stage at this year's Mobile World Congress. Security software programs are critical in the era of the Internet of Things, in which every device is connected to the World Wide Web. Korea's Samsung SCS brought its Knox workspace platform for Samsung mobile devices. With the app, private or company data is isolated from other data on the device on a separate environment, often called a container, and encrypted to protect against malware and external attacks. A Samsung product consultant explains a situation in which someone could protect sensitive corporate data even after losing a phone.
First thing I do is I call the IT admin and tell him I've lost my phone. He locks my Knox container, so all of the business data is secure. But after 2 minutes, I turn over a bit of paper on my desk and there it is. I call him back and he unlocks it. If after 2 hours I still haven't found it, so what he'll do is wipe the container.
VR devices definitely got the lion's share of attention at this year's MWC. Samsung's 40-year VR theater, a popular attraction at last month's Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, was popular again here, with people waiting in line for nearly an hour to try it out. That was the same story for Korea's largest mobile carrier, SK Telecom, with its virtual reality submarine experience. Korea-based LG Electronics also had a small 4-seat VR experience corner that was packed with people too. That's in stark contrast to last year's MWC, where VR was on the fringes, and smart cars and wearables, including smartwatches and smart bands, were all the rage.
This year's MWC is a reminder of how fickle and unpredictable IT trends are. What was cool this year may not be the next, but one thing's for sure, whoever was here this year will be back in 2017. Kim Jeon, Arirang News, Barcelona.
Now, let's get some more details on the North Korea sanctions that are being discussed at the UN Security Council. The United States has submitted its draft resolution to the Council. This resolution, of course, is in response to North Korea's recent nuclear test and ballistic missile launch. The Council has just finished discussing the measures. These were finally agreed upon by Washington and Beijing earlier this week. Here are some of the details we know thus far. This draft resolution submitted by the US. The resolution will require the inspection of all cargo to and from North Korea. The US ambassador to the UN, Samantha Power, who has been making some remarks after emerging from a meeting in the Security Council headquarters, says the draft resolution will represent the toughest sanctions against the North in many, many years. The UN sanctions resolution will see North Korean diplomats expelled from the countries in which they are in if they are implicated in any illegal banking transactions, in a move aimed at stopping any illegal money flows going into the North's weapons programs. There will be a mandatory inspection of all North Korean import and export of freight, and also toughened weapons sanctions banning the import and export of all North Korean weapons and related weapons systems. Also, on top of this, what we're hearing is a total of 29 North Korean entities, 17 private and 12 groups, 17 private individuals, presumably, will be under sanctions under the terms of this draft resolution. There will also be, considering North Korea test-fired a ballistic missile earlier this month, a ban on the supply of rocket fuel. And on top of that, there will also be a ban on the supply of all aircraft fuel to North Korea. We'll have more details on this in our next newscast at noon, Korea time. Well, that's all we have for now. I'm Mark Broom. Thank you as always for tuning in, and we'll be back throughout the day with more newscasts. Until then, goodbye.